Young people don't need more friends. They have plenty of friends. Young people need an adult presence in their life. Sometimes as young teachers especially, we think, well, the age difference isn't all that great between us and these students. We try to be their friends, and that doesn't work.
Hi, this is Brad Henry. On the podcast, we have stories about the underdog. I've had a lot of victory, but more tragedy in my life has made me very compassionate and perceptive on those who struggle, but those who are not willing to give up. And these stories will hopefully inspire you to become more and be more in life, to give you hope, to know that victory can be right around the corner. And hopefully today's story will be that one to put you in a great mindset to know that everything in life is attainable with persistence and hope. So thank you for listening today, and I think you will really enjoy our channel. The gentleman I have today means more to me than my father. And we've been trying to get this done for a number of times. And it is a privilege that through all the technical difficulties that he has had the patience to come back and do this again. And his name is Mr. Reno DiOrio, who was assistant headmaster at Kiski, football coach. I could go on and on. Headmaster at Linsly School, and I call him a true friend, mentor, coach, so many things he is meant to me. So, Reno, thank you for joining today, and it's going to be a great talk.
Well, Brad, it's good to be with you. It's good to see you on the screen. And I want you to know that I wouldn't do a podcast 3 times or 4 times for anyone other than you.
Well, I think that after the last one, and it wasn't anything that we did, it was just technical difficulties. But I said,
Yeah.
Hey, Reno, I hate to tell you, but it didn't come through great. But every time we did a football drill, and it sounded like it felt perfect, you said, do it again, do it again, do it again. So I came back with that.
We both know the meaning of never quit, a lot of perseverance in our lives.
Yes, yes. So I was thinking the impact you've been in the education sector for 50 years?
60 years. This is my 60th year between Kiski and Linsly.
How many students go to Linsly?
Uh, Around 425.
Oh, wow. Okay. So let's just say 300 a year times 50 years. That that's a lot of touch points into people's lives. I mean, that's a lot of families. And I think that so many people will want to know a different side of Reno DiOrio that they may not know. I knew you as a disciplinarian, which I needed deeply, and you knew that. I didn't know you knew that. We both lost our dads when we were young, and you were the one who really molded me into who I am today.
Well, that's kind of you to say, Brad. It's probably more credit than I deserve, but
No.
we don't learn about working with young people from books. We learn working with young people from experience and understanding really touch points in their lives that have been really important. And because of my own situation, losing my father when I was 11, I knew the history of you and losing your father. So yeah, I paid special attention to you because I knew that you needed a male presence in your life.
Well, you weren't my friend at the time. You were my coach, my mentor. Um, somebody who I truly looked up to, you know, and I say that with great respect because I don't
I
believe,
appreciate that.
yeah,
And more than once, I have said to parents or other educators that I may have been working with that young people don't need more friends. They have plenty of friends. Young people need an adult presence in their life. And sometimes, as young teachers, especially, we think, well, the age difference isn't all that great between us and these students, and we try to be their friends, and that doesn't work.
that's a fine balance. Now you had said something very interesting about Mr. Ziegler. You would ask him a question about how can you teach chemistry and physics. I think that was a question, or how do you?
This was a question coming from me as a young teacher, wondering how someone who must have been doing this for 40 years by this point, and I said, how can you teach physics over and over again every year for 40 years and put the enthusiasm into it? And his response was a very quick response. You knuckle, I'm not teaching physics, I'm teaching kids, I'm teaching young men. And every class of young men is different. And I have to figure out what my approach is going to be for this group or for this individual. So he made it very clear that you don't get bored teaching the same thing because you're teaching different people, different young people every day.
So he used that as a tool to reach people, young
Correct.
adults. That's an amazing paradigm shift from what we normally think teachers, because a lot of teachers would just teach and say what they know about what they've learned instead of looking at the student, the heart of a student.
Well, Brad, you can't fake either one. You can't fake the fact that you must know subject material. You can't. Then he had different ways of reaching students. I don't know if you had classes in what was called Paradise at Kiski, but
I
Jake
was
would go to
not
the.
that smart to take any of his courses.
He would
uh,
be on a fire escape and shoot an arrow and teach you about how fast that falling object was. And he did a lot of things that got attention from people who weren't even math science oriented.
well, I was amazed that you knew history so well. And I'm like, he's my coach. He's a football coach. He's a football player. How does he know academics? Because I was one dimensional back then. It was either all about football or running or nothing. And I was not surprised, but how can you do both? How can you be a great teacher and a great coach and at the same time? How can you know both? And that I had to develop over years that there's more to life than just sports.
Yeah, well, Brad, when I first got out of college and the Army and went back to Kiski, I really was I was seriously interested in becoming a college football coach. And it only took me about 2 years before I realized that I didn't want to devote my life working with young people only about football and looking at films around the clock and looking at scouting and recruiting kids at the college level. So I was pleased to be able to coach, really enjoyed it, but I had other interests as well. And it didn't take long for me to switch my path and say, I want to work with young people, but I don't want to devote my life to being a college football coach. So from that point on, I think I became the head coach at Kiski in 1967. And I was the head coach until I left Kiski in 1979 and really enjoyed it. It was like Jake Ziegler said, you'd have different players every year and you've got to think of different ways to motivate them. And yeah, it's just another lab for you to work with kids. And there's the academic classroom is one part of the lab. there's this playing field is another part.
Why would I go to every practice, every game, trying to impress you? What do you think?
I think you answered that question. And in your mind, I was a father figure for you. I was someone who paid attention to you, and you were at a time when you were very vulnerable and needed attention, and so it happened to click. It clicked for you, and it was easy for it to click for me. You were a young guy who had a lot of enthusiasm and had talent, and so it was fortuitous for both of us. And remember that for every time you think of how fortunate you were to have people in your life who paid attention to you. If you really enjoy working with young people and people like Jake Ziegler and Cliff Brett and Jack Pigeon really did enjoy working with young people, then it was a pleasure to go to work every day. I think I told you one other time that I had an uncle who worked his entire life in a steel mill and hated every day, hated going to work every day.
Oh,
And I'm at the opposite end of the spectrum. I can tell you that there was never a day that I hated going to work.
wow.
And it was a joy for me to work with the young boys for most of my career, and then in a co-ed setting the rest of my career. But a lot of fun.
You've meant a lot to a lot of different people. And, I'll say this again that I suffered severe depression when I left D1 athletics and couldn't find myself and thought about taking my life. And I didn't think about disappointing my brother or my mother. I thought about disappointing Reno DiOrio, Mr. DiOrio. And I'm here today because of you. So, and I'm sure I am not the only one that can say that. I'm sure there are many out there because you were faithful, consistent, and fair to everyone. And, you know, that's who you are. You have made an impact on so many people, and I want the world to know about you.
Well, it's interesting for you to say that, and I'm certainly pleased that I had some impact on you. But we really never know. In most cases, the impact that we've had on students. It's not in the nature of a teenage boy to say thanks because uh, you held me to certain standards or you taught me about discipline any more than it is for that teenage boy to tell his parents thank you for treating me the way you did. I had an earlier curfew than anyone else, and I know it really helped me in the long run. That's not the nature of teenage boys. Most of the compliments that we receive or the testimonies that we receive happen probably when a young man, or now in Linsly's case, a young lady, hits their 20s, 30s, and has their own family, starts to understand that they're going through the same thing that parents did with them, teachers and coaches did with them. Then they start to appreciate and see in a much broader sense what was at work during their teenage years at Kiski or at Linsly.
Now, you said you went to a wedding this past weekend. Was that somebody from Linsly or?
Yeah, it was a wonderful weekend. The Vallejos family is a well-known family at Kiski.
Oh, yeah.
Zach and Mary Vallejos were a few years ahead of Karen and me arriving at Kiski. When we got there, they had been there maybe 3 years. So we became good friends with them and saw their three girls, Mary Grace and Annie and Stephanie, grow up on the Kiski campus.
Yep.
And eventually our three boys growing up on the Kiski campus. And further down the road, Mary Grace's daughter, this would be Mary and Zach's granddaughter, came to Linsly and graduated from Linsly. And Danielle Mustard Danielle Muster was being married
Yeah.
this past weekend. And so we went, sometimes at this stage in our life, you know the family, you know the grandparents, but you really don't know the bride. Well, we knew the grandparents and we knew the mother and the aunts and we
Oh,
all their children and we knew Danielle very well. So
oh my.
yeah, it was a special weekend and we really enjoyed being with all of them again. And they treated us like family and believe me, Brad, it was an honor to be there.
Oh, a lot of people know, but you were a great athlete. Um, when did you know that you could be a quarterback? How old were you?
Oh, I don't know that there was any time that I knew. I knew that I was always interested in athletics, and athletics kind of became the way that I could fit in. So when I was a high school student and then went to Kiski, it was certainly a even bigger part of my life at Kiski because it was a big transition for me to come from a little Western Pennsylvania town to go to Kiski. And everything about it, the academic demands, the level of coaching that when I received, everything was different. And so athletics was important to me. It was my way of fitting in. And then
But you went
eventually,
to Dickinson and was a starter and got into the Hall of Fame there. I mean,
there's a story there. A legend at Dickinson, Ben James, was a director of admissions for a long time. And incidentally, he and Jake Ziegler were classmates and teammates at Dickinson College. And Ben James, when he worked at Dickinson, became an academic trustee at Kiski. And
oh wow.
uh, because of athletics, I had some interest from schools much larger than Dickinson. But Mr. Pigeon called me in one day and said, "Kid, you're going to Dickinson." And I said, "Well, wait a minute, Mr. Pigeon."
Kid.
And I named the other schools that had expressed an interest in me. And he said, "Yeah, but I want to make certain that you go someplace where you're taken care of. And I know Ben James is going to take care of you." And so Dickinson was a smaller school, but I had a wonderful career there. Academically, I was a psych major.
Oh,
Had Ben James as a teacher and professor in a couple of classes. Was close to Ben James during my 4 years there. Uh, I started every game at Dickinson during my 4 years there. Uh,
as
yeah,
even as a freshman, you started?
yeah, but of course that was at a time when there weren't freshman teams and yeah, so yeah,
Wow.
Division III, I was able to start every game, and I had a good career. So maybe if those bigger schools, I would have gone, and maybe I would have sat on the bench. I don't know, but I know I had a good college career, and I appreciate Mr. Pigeon's advice and Ben James' concern and interest
Uh,
in me, and along with other people at Dickinson.
um, you had said something about discipline to me, and I talked to Sandy Pigeon, and he said hello. Um, that I was telling him the story about you and Mr. Pigeon about never, even if you discipline a guy, make sure he doesn't go to bed at night thinking that you're mad or that's biblical. It's phenomenal, to make things right with students.
When you talk about it now, it sounds like common sense, but it isn't common sense. Students made mistakes and teachers and coaches got angry and in a literal sense, I don't know that every time that it happened before they went to bed at night, but the message that Mr. Pigeon was teaching was that a young boy has to understand that he made a mistake, but that you're not disposing of him. You're not saying, well, that's it for you. You're giving him a chance to go back and go back and go back, and you keep working with the kid. And with many students, I'm sure they remember that the anger that Mr. Pigeon had when he gave out grades and really wasn't very happy giving you your grades with your performance. And as you sat nervously waiting for it to be your turn to get grades, and then you didn't get any pluses, you just got some negatives. But you can bet that Mr. Pigeon would sometime in that next week, maybe not that night, but in the next week, would find something to compliment you on. And
Wow.
that would make all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that I was one of those that understood that and tried to do the same thing. But I certainly wasn't the only one at Kiski or at Linsly who had the same mentality. But it's the kind of thing that I would say to our faculty at Linsly, as the head of school, regularly, that you got to look for some way to connect with a kid, and it's easier to connect with that student as with something that you're complimenting him about than it is that you're disciplining him about. But if you do the discipline, then make certain that a compliment comes from somewhere and you find something to tell him about, even if you're his basketball coach, but you're complimenting him because he wrote a good essay in English class that the English teacher told you about. Find something that you want to bring the relationship back to where you'd like it to be.
I remember once I was in a classroom against the window looking out, and you came up and knocked on the door or knocked on the window, and you had said something about, I just watched the game film, and you really hit some people blocking. Maybe I was smaller or whatever, but this crackback blocking, and that stuck with me. That was pretty cool that you stopped our class just in order to tell me that. And
Yeah, you try to do that regularly, in addition to being able to compliment someone, to compliment that person in front of his peers
mm,
becomes a big thing as well. Uh,
ah, interesting. You had said, how do you want to be remembered? And I think you said, I want to be remembered that I was fair. Um, and you certainly were. You have a great wife, great kids. You were consistent in what you did. We knew our boundaries with you. And that's a big thing in today's world. A lot of times we don't know boundaries, and we need to have them.
yeah, we sure do. And our culture is changing so much and so quickly. And uh, the cell phone has made such a difference in the development of young people. And so boundaries are more important than ever. I think letting a student know what those boundaries are and being consistent with those boundaries is more important than ever.
Yeah.
But I know that I was the head of school at the right time. My 60 years this is my 60th year.
Oh,
And my 60 years were at the right time. I enjoyed the beginning of my career. It was a tough time because of Vietnam and a lot of disruption in our culture at that time. Being the head of school starting in 1979 was the right time. And now I'm enjoying, I have nothing to do with the day-to-day operation at Linsly, but I spend a lot of time with alums, and it's it's really satisfying to go back and see all of these young people who are now in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and doing well, and see what they've done as a family man and
yeah, I
a
just
husband and
turned
a father.
70. Crazy. I,
Yeah,
I, I mean, and you look great. It looks like, you're healthy, and I know you still love to play golf.
well,
Hey,
I've been very fortunate, Brad. As you know, I mean, Karen has been a wonderful companion to me in this long 60 years, and it's also the 60th anniversary for Karen and me as a
oh,
married.
when?
June 19th. So I got out of the Army and we got married in June, got out of the Army in August, and went right to Kiski for preseason football.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was the beginning of my career in 1965. And so, as I say, I'm just doing alumni work now, but I've been very fortunate that Karen's been a part of my life and our career. And we have three wonderful sons, David, Matt, and Chris, who are scattered. Matt is a teacher in Denver, Chris is a teacher in Portland, and David
Oh,
is an entrepreneur in the Pittsburgh area and has two daughters. So, uh,
wow.
Yeah, and I do enjoy playing golf, and you can't play golf and run a school at the same time. But I'm not running a school now, so I have more time for golf.
I had listened to a talk, former head coach at Alabama. I won't mention his name, but he's well known. And he had said that reason he got out of coaching was because this new NIL was coming to fruition. And his wife had said, I don't think we can have an impact anymore like we used to with students because now it's going to be about money. And
Yeah,
they're
Brad,
actually,
I've seen that same interview, and uh, I know exactly what he was talking about. That with people coming and going the way they did, and coming for changing schools because of the money that's out there. And I think he was truly one of the Division I coaches who really tried to develop kids as
yeah,
players and also as individuals.
like you. Yes.
And it just wasn't the same anymore. Yeah.
I can't imagine a high school player getting money to go to a college. Um,
Yeah. Well, if I said it earlier in our talk today that I didn't want to be a college football coach because I didn't want to devote so much time to just football. Well, today it's worse than ever because you don't even have an impact on the development of that person as an individual or a player because he's probably not going to be with you longer than a year or two. And, another part of our culture that has changed so much, it's just crazy.
I remember the Pirates, Bill Mazeroski and Clemente. Um, they stayed with one team their whole entire life, and they became part of the community. And, that doesn't happen anymore.
No, and you mentioned the Pirates, and I'll mention that Steve Blass, as a pitcher and an announcer for the Pirates, and his uh, his total career with the Pirates spans more than 50 years. Uh, but Steve and I became good friends a long time ago. When he got out of baseball pitching, he ran baseball camps for me at Kiski and then down here at Linsly, and sent a son, David, to
Oh,
Linsly. And we continue to be good friends. And he and his son, David, came down just 2 weeks ago to spend the day. But as he walked around the campus and he met teachers, Steve spent time with every one of them,
oh,
took pictures with them, and said that Bob Friend, a pitcher that you and I might be familiar with, but a lot of young people
yep.
wouldn't be. Bob Friend told him, take a minute to make a moment. And Steve tries to
Hmm.
take a picture with someone that becomes a big deal for them. And he lives by that. And it's not phony. He says something individually to these people that he meets and said, do you want a picture taken? And he said, yeah, I'd like to take a minute to make a moment.
That's huge. You need to create a t-shirt trademark for that one. Well, we finally were able to talk a little bit about the impact you had on my life, the impact you had on so many others. And I know when this is aired, you'll get a lot of feedback because you've been so faithful to so many.
You're more optimistic about that than I am, that there are going to be all these people that want to see it. But I appreciate your inviting me to be a part of this. And I always appreciate your kind words whenever we talk. It means a lot to me, Brad. And congratulations on your career.
No,
And you've
thank you.
had some challenges to fight, as so many of us have at times. But look where you are today, and your family is today. So
Yep.
congratulations.
No, thank you. And truly an honor to have you on this program and an honor to be your friend. So thank you for all the time today. And I look forward to many more conversations with you.
Absolutely, Brad. Thanks again.
Okay, you take care.
All right.
See
Bye.
you. Thank you for listening today. Quite a segment. Hope you got as much out of it as I did, and that you learned something from adversity, not giving up, that there's always hope no matter what the circumstances. Please subscribe to our channel so you get all the latest updates, and you can see all the past great stories of people who have overcome true adversity and hardships in life. I'm Brad Henry. Thank you for tuning in.